Minasan konnichiwa, and welcome to the Board Game Dojo's Import or Not series, where we take a look at games from Asia and let you know if they're worth your hard-earned money to import or not. Today, we are taking a look at a double feature. Well, really, it's actually just a game in its expandalone game, Stereo Mind and Stereo Mind Classical, a light party game in which you need to try to hive mind by thinking about the same word on a card after hearing a short tune. Let's see if these games are worth the import or not from Korea. This is Import or Not. This is the basic setup of Stereo Mind. You'll have 8 cards in the middle here and a dial for each player. Each of these dials from 1 to 5. You'll also get a pause card. In the classical version of the game, it's a mute button, and in the original version of the game, it is literally just a pause button. The rules for both versions are essentially the same, with the classical version having 2 of these buttons for higher player counts. But since we're only playing at 3, we only need 1 of these. You'll flip over the top card, and you will be given 5 choices. These might be words, these might be pictures, it depends on the card. So for this one, we have vitamin, virus, vaccine, endorphin, and glucose. You'll then put it down where everybody can see it, and then you will take your phone and read the QR code on the top. It'll then play a song automatically from YouTube, if my internet will work. And you can put it in here to boost the volume. As the song is playing, everybody will secretly choose a number on their dial that they think best matches the song that is playing. So for me, I don't know, I think that it feels a little energetic, so I'm going to do endorphin because endorphins make you feel good. Once the song is over, you will then choose a player to get the mute token. Let's say for this round, I am in charge of the mute token. The person in charge of the mute token is whoever got the mute token in the previous round. But since this is the start of the game, let's say that since I was the start player, I am in charge of the mute token. I think that me and the drum person are just not thinking on the same page this round, so I'm going to give it to them. They are the only player in which does not need to match the rest of us. So I just think that the 2 of us will match. We will then flip over. And in this case, we don't match. But let's say that in fact we did. We both chose 4 because we both were thinking endorphins are going to make us feel better. And so does the song. Then we would get to take this card, and that is a point for us at the end of the game. If you do not match, if even one person does not match, then you do not get to take this card. In any case, you will then flip over the next card and do the same thing for the next one. And as you can see, this is an example of pictures, as this one has ice cream and donuts and cake. You'll go through all of the cards in this deck, and then you'll check the rulebook to see how your score lines up. And that is how you play Stereo Mind. So before actually getting into the game review in and of itself, it's really hard to kind of differentiate out the game itself from the publisher that publishes it, which in this case is PlayT. I think that's how you pronounce it. Their showing at Essen was definitely a bit of a mess, and mess is really calling it nicely what it was. Everybody who needed to pre-order, prepaid for their games before coming to Essen, and then they would show up and some of their games just wouldn't be there. Now they did offer to do a refund or to send the game that you were supposed to get to your house free of charge, but it's kind of a little bit strange when you prepaid for a game to be there, it didn't show up, or in another person's instance, they actually sold his pre-ordered copy of the game because they, quote, said they didn't expect it to sell as much, so we just got rid of everything we had. And that is just kind of a distasteful start to a game that I was really looking forward to, because this game was actually on our anticipation list for Essen, because I thought it was going to be a game in which I could teach people very, very quickly. It would be a very good game to say, okay, you're intimidated by board games. Let's try this one and see how you like it. Because maybe the person would be attracted to, oh, it's a cooperation game, which can be a little bit less intimidating. Or, oh, it's music, which can be a little bit less intimidating as well, especially if they like music. And I didn't have to wait long to test out this theory. Because as happenstance, one of Sima-chan's friends was staying over at our house. And, you know, her and I are trying to get to know each other as they they actually know each other from college days. And, you know, what are your hobbies? What do you like? What do you don't like? Things like that. And one of the things I said was, okay, I like board games and I have a few if you've ever want to try some out. And her immediate reaction was, I don't like board games. No, I don't want to do that. And it's like, oh, okay, all right, well, I'm gonna cross that off the possible checklist of things I could do. All right, but then that night, she suggested we play headbands and then another party game. So it was interesting because I said, okay, wait a second. Why don't you like board games? Because you just suggested we play 2 games, one of which is a very popular board game in the United States. She said, oh, well, actually, I just don't like games with a lot of rules and that take a long time. Well, as a coincidental factor, not only do I have a game that I can teach to you in 30 seconds, but oh, you also work at a music school, and so you like music? Ha 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 ha, it's time to break out stereo mind. Now, we were off and rolling, and we ended up trying both editions of the game, starting with the classical version, because that was the one that Sima-chan and her would just appreciate more for the music quality of it, and then we switched over to just see the differences in the game. Now, you're actually going to start by putting together the different dials that you can dial 1 to 5 in the box. It doesn't take very long to do as such, but even I noticed as I was putting together the dials that the classical ones were just so much nicer. The classical music version comes with different instruments that make up the dials instead of the original one, which is just a kind of boring circle dial that you've probably seen anyway. The cards in the games are different, with the original version just being words, which are still pretty fun, but the classical music version could be words, but it could also be pictures. It could also be things like speech bubbles or the different planets, and you're like, I have no idea how we are going to match up with this one. And that's the thing with actually both of them that we really enjoyed, was that you would sometimes get songs that matched up really well with the card that you were going to have to somehow hive mind together. So for example, the words on the cards might be different emotions, which you got lucky on for this one because the emotion card is a nice one. And then you just got a really angry sounding song. Okay, fantastic. I think we're all thinking on the same page there. But then there'll be another picture in which, like I said before, as an example, it'll be the different planets and maybe wormhole. And you're like, I have no idea what on earth we are going to think about this one. Or it'll be 5 different weights, like physical weights, where like the lightest is like a feather and the heaviest will be like an elephant. And you're like, oh, okay, I hope that this song kind of lands somewhere in the middle, or is really, really light or really, really heavy, so that we can all match on that. So some of them are just really easy and some of them are really, really difficult. But because of that difference in difficulty, it ends up being a kind of occasion, a cause for celebration when you can match these things up. Unfortunately, we were not good at this game at all. I think the max we ever got was 3 out of a possible 7, and which the rulebook is a little bit funnier. It's like, yeah, I think you should probably get to know each other better before you play again. That's that one. Overall, I actually think that this game is a lot better than I actually expected it to be. Like I was saying earlier, because of the components and the various amounts of cards, we actually would recommend the classical version if you don't have a preference between the music taste, because the classical version does have more variety of cards that might include words and pictures. We just found that to be a lot more fun. We like the dials. Those are a lot more interesting when it can be an instrument during a music game versus just a plain circle. And in the future, we are actually just combining the 2 boxes where we might be able to play the songs from either one, but we're actually going to use the components from the classical version because those ones are just better. It wouldn't surprise me if we learned that the original Stereo Mind was kind of more of an experiment to see if it had some buzz or can sell well, and then it did sell well, so then they made a lot nicer version the second time. I'm not sure if that's what happened, but it wouldn't surprise me at all because it just seems like an upgrade in every way. So at the end of the day, we think that this game is absolutely worth the import for you, especially if you're looking for something where you can bring it to gatherings of people that might be a little bit intimidated by other games or would be attracted by the theme or the idea of working together to respond the same way to a musical track. You can basically play this game with anyone. In fact, Suma-chan's friend that I mentioned earlier said that she wanted a copy as soon as we were done with it because she wanted to bring it to her music school to see what the professors would think and see if they would agree with each other on the feelings and emotions and pictures that you would have to match on after listening to these pieces of music. And if this game makes somebody who starts off the conversation of, I don't like board games, saying, I actually want a copy for myself, well, That's a pretty fun game in my opinion. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. ありがとうございました. Until next time, じゃあね.